The scraping sound dragged Elias Mercer from his sleep. Metal against stone. Slow. Methodical. He glanced at the glowing clock. 2:11 a.m. Curiosity pushed him to the window. Outside, a tall man in a heavy winter coat dragged an iron shovel across his walkway. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Elias whispered. Hey? The man didn't respond. He lifted his head, pale face beneath strands of damp dark hair, staring directly at him. Seconds stretched. Then the figure turned and vanished into the night. Elias opened the door. Empty street. No footsteps. No figure. Only the walkway, perfectly clean. The air was thick. Silent. Expectant. If you enjoy slow burn horror like this, consider subscribing. More terrifying stories every week. The next night, Elias tried to ignore it. He told himself it was a prank. A neighbor. Someone with nothing better to do. But 2:11 a.m. arrived, and with it, the scraping. This time, Elias was ready. He grabbed his phone, opened the flashlight, and crept to the window. The man was there, shovel in hand, moving the same invisible snow. Scrape. 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 Elias whispered. Why are you doing this? The man didn't answer. He didn't even look up. When Elias reached for the door handle, the figure paused. Then vanished. No footsteps. No sound. Empty pavement. The walkway was perfectly cleared. Confused and unnerved, Elias set up a small camera facing the walkway. The footage the next morning made his stomach turn. The man appeared on the camera at 2:11 a.m. exactly, clearing the walkway. Hours passed. The clock never moved past 2:11. Scrape. 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 Every night, the same. Sleep left him. Dreams filled with rhythmic scraping, echoing down empty streets. One night, unable to resist, Elias opened the front door before the man could vanish. The figure stood silently, shovel resting against his shoulder. Elias asked, his voice trembling. Why are you clearing my path? The man finally spoke. Because you live here. Elias swallowed. So what? Someone must keep the crossing open, the man said, and stepped back into the shadows, disappearing. Elias spent the next days researching. Local archives. Weather records. Old property deeds. Anything that might explain the man's presence. He found references to path keepers. Figures who maintained invisible routes connecting places that shouldn't exist together. The concept sounded impossible. Mythical. But the footage. The sound. The frozen time. Something was happening. And it revolved around him. 2 weeks later, desperate for peace, Elias sold the house. He moved to a remote cabin on the edge of a dense forest, beside a quiet lake. For 14 days, nothing happened. Sleep returned. The scraping, the frozen time, the shadows, everything seemed gone. Then, at exactly 2:11 a.m., it began again. Scrape. 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 Through the cabin window, Elias saw the figure. The same tall man, shovel in hand, moving along the dirt path that led toward the lake. Heart pounding, Elias grabbed a flashlight and ran outside. The man paused. Head tilted slightly, watching him. Elias demanded, "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure lifted the shovel slowly. "Someone must maintain the path," he said, voice hollow and unwavering. Elias staggered backward. Questions raced through his mind. What path? Why him? Why now? The man began walking toward the forest. The path stretched unnaturally far into the trees, far beyond where the lake or the woods should allow. Shapes moved at the edge of his vision. Shadows that weren't shadows. Footsteps that didn't belong to him. Whispers, indistinct but urgent, rose from the undergrowth. The man paused. Turned. Eyes piercing. "They are trying to cross," he whispered. Elias asked, "Cross where?" "Anyway," the man replied. The next day, a visitor arrived. Rowan Hale, a local who lived farther down the lake. Friendly at first, overly curious, his questions unnerved Elias. "Do you hear anything at night?" Rowan asked. "Someone outside?" Elias replied cautiously. Rowan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Does someone visit your yard at exactly 2:11? Elias froze. How could this man know? Rowan sighed. "If he started clearing your path, it's already too late." He explained the old stories. Paths existed between places, invisible to most, connecting not only locations but times and even people. The pathkeeper maintained these crossings. If the role was ignored or abandoned, entities would find their own way. Elias struggled to grasp it, shaking his head. "Why me?" he asked. Rowan's gaze was grave. "Because the path chooses. And now it has chosen you." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He tried to block the window. Tried to ignore the scraping. But 2:11 a.m. arrived, and with it, scrape, scrape, scrape. The figure moved along the forest path, shovel glinting in the pale moonlight. Elias, trembling, stepped outside. Every tree seemed stretched. The forest extended farther than it should. Footprints, hundreds of them, marred the dirt, leading in impossible directions. The man stopped, turned slowly. Eyes hollow. "They are coming," he whispered. Shapes began emerging from the shadows, indistinct, shifting forms that seemed to shimmer between reality and nightmare. Elias froze. Heart hammering. The pathkeeper held out the shovel. "Your turn," he said. Elias stared at the shovel in his hands. Cold seeped into his bones. The shapes moved closer, silent but insistent, blurring the line between forest and nightmare. He could feel their gaze on him, probing, waiting. For a long moment, he did nothing. Hesitation threatened to consume him. Then, instinct took over. His fingers wrapped around the worn wooden handle. The metal edge scraped the dirt. Scrape. 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 Immediately, the pathkeeper vanished, leaving Elias alone on the path with the night pressing in from every side. The whispering in the forest softened but didn't stop. Shadows lingered near the tree line, restless. Elias's arms ached. Every muscle tensed. The shovel was heavy, heavier than it should be, but he kept working. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time felt wrong, like before. But he didn't dare stop. When dawn finally broke, the path was clear. The lake reflected calm, the forest quiet. But Elias couldn't shake the sense that the night had changed him. The whispering persisted, faint now, threading through the wind. He sat on the cabin porch, exhausted, shaking. And when 2:11 a.m. arrived that night, Elias woke automatically. With no thought, no hesitation, he rose, walked to the front door, and began clearing the path again. Far down the road, Rowan watched from his window. Relief softened his features. But in the forest, the whispers continued, waiting for the next person the path would choose. The world moved on outside, oblivious. But Elias Mercer, now the keeper, knew that some roles never ended, they only changed hands.